Nick Carraway discovered that the rich man living in the palace-like mansion across the bay would always stand there at night, staring toward this side. Not long after, Nick received an invitation from him. It was an extravagantly luxurious party. The entire estate was lit up, and the music, champagne, and guests lasted all night. Every week, the host spent an enormous fortune to let everyone enjoy themselves for free. Those so-called social elites showed up without being invited, indulged themselves in all this glamour, yet almost no one actually knew the man behind it. That mysterious figure was named Jay Gatsby. He casually bought the most eye-catching mansion on Long Island, yet no one knew where he came from and no one knew how he had made his money. Some said he was a spy. Some said he was a killer. But all of that was just rumor. Every night, Gatsby would stand at the end of his dock, staring at the green light across the bay, as if he were waiting for someone. The next day, Gatsby drove his custom car to pick Nick up for lunch. Along the way, he kept telling Nick about his past. He even took out medals, photos, and all kinds of proof, trying to make Nick believe that he had studied at Oxford, fought in the war, and inherited a huge fortune. On the road, a police officer stopped their car, but Gatsby only showed him a card, and the officer immediately let them go. After that, Gatsby took Nick to a barbershop. It looked ordinary on the outside, but inside, it hid an underground bar. A lot of powerful people gathered there. Boxers, police chiefs, and senators all seemed familiar with Gatsby. Gatsby then introduced Nick to a businessman named Meyer Wolfsheim, a man with a lot of influence in New York. But just as Nick was talking with Wolfsheim alone, someone he recognized suddenly appeared. Gatsby only gave a stiff greeting, then disappeared as if he were deliberately avoiding him. The real reason Gatsby got close to Nick was actually something else. A few days earlier, Nick had just moved into a small house on Long Island. After Daisy Buchanan, his cousin across the bay, found out, she invited him to her home. Daisy came from wealth, and her husband Tom Buchanan was Nick's former classmate and the owner of that grand estate. The moment Daisy saw Nick, she acted warmly toward him and even tried to introduce her friend Jordan Baker to him. But the atmosphere in that mansion was far from relaxed. Whenever Tom received a phone call, his expression would grow tense, and Daisy clearly knew what that meant. The next day, Tom took Nick to the Valley of Ashes outside the city. Only then did Nick learn that Tom had a mistress. She was Myrtle Wilson, the wife of a mechanic named George Wilson. Right in front of Nick, Tom called Myrtle into an apartment in the city. Nick wanted to leave, but he was still kept there and dragged into a private gathering full of chaos and indulgence. On the bright, glittering side of New York, he finally saw the rot hidden underneath. Later, Nick was invited to one of Gatsby's parties. By coincidence, Jordan was there too. The mysterious rich man from all the rumors finally showed himself. After exchanging only a few words with Nick, Gatsby left and had a servant invite Jordan alone into the study. When Jordan came out, she only looked at Nick with sudden understanding and said that everything finally made sense, but that she could not tell him yet. It was not until the next afternoon, after Nick stormed out of the underground bar and angrily went to find Jordan, that she finally told him Gatsby's real purpose. Gatsby wanted Nick to arrange a meeting with Daisy. 5 years earlier, Gatsby had been nothing more than a penniless young officer. At that time he met Daisy in Louisville, and the two quickly grew close. But the war separated them, and after Gatsby left he never came back. Later, Tom won Daisy with a string of pearls worth $350,000. On the morning of her wedding, Daisy received a letter and immediately tore off the necklace, nearly calling off the wedding. But in the end she still married Tom. The wedding was grand and respectable. Soon after, Daisy had once thrown herself fully into that marriage. But only a week later, Tom was discovered with another woman. From that moment on, everything changed. 5 years later, Gatsby bought a mansion across the bay from Daisy's house and kept throwing free parties, all in the hope that one day Daisy might show up. But she never came. So Gatsby could only place his hopes on Nick. Nick could not understand why a man would go this far for someone he had not seen in 5 years, but in the end, he still agreed to help. That very night, Gatsby was already waiting outside Nick's house. After getting Nick's answer, he even tried to repay him with inside information about stocks, but Nick refused. Early the next morning, Nick was awakened by the noise in the yard. The people Gatsby sent had already cleaned up his messy little lawn until it looked brand new. That afternoon, Gatsby personally arrived in the rain with a huge pile of orchids. But when the agreed time actually came, he suddenly grew nervous and even wanted to call it off. Just then Daisy's car arrived. Nick welcomed her inside while Gatsby, not knowing how to appear, ended up coming in through the back door completely soaked by rain. After so many years apart, the atmosphere between them was painfully awkward at first. Nick could not bear to watch and had no choice but to leave them alone for a while. By the time he came back, the two of them were already talking non-stop, and the look in their eyes had gone back to what it was 5 years earlier. After that, Gatsby took Daisy to see his mansion. Everything there, from the rooms to the decorations, from the garden to the closets, felt as if it had all been prepared just for her. Gatsby tossed expensive shirts down from upstairs one after another, just to win a smile from her. But Daisy suddenly burst into tears. She said it was because she had never seen such beautiful shirts before, but what truly shook her was not just the clothes. It was the entire world Gatsby had built for her. Only then did that green light, the one Gatsby had been obsessed with for so long, no longer seem so impossibly far away. In truth, Gatsby was not born into nobility at all. He came from a poor family and left home at 16 to chase his dream. Later, he saved a millionaire named Dan Cody at sea. By following Cody, he got his first glimpse of the upper class and learned how to shape himself into a true gentleman. After Dan Cody died, the fortune that should have gone to Gatsby was taken away by the family. As for where Gatsby's later wealth came from, and how he supported all those luxurious parties, it became a secret all of New York wanted to know. Not long after that, Tom also attended one of Gatsby's parties. He looked down on Gatsby and was convinced he was nothing more than a dirty bootlegger. But when Gatsby introduced senators and all kinds of social elites to everyone, the whole atmosphere changed. Those powerful people elevated Gatsby's status, and Tom was the one who suddenly seemed like an outsider. Daisy thoroughly enjoyed that feeling of being admired and surrounded, and Gatsby took the chance to bring her outside. Daisy suggested that they run away together, but Gatsby did not want that kind of ending. What he wanted was something more absolute. He wanted Daisy to say to Tom with her own mouth that she had never loved him, and then be with Gatsby openly and properly, but things did not unfold the way Gatsby imagined. After that party ended, Tom had already made up his mind to find out where Gatsby had really come from. And while Gatsby was talking with Nick, he revealed real unease for the first time. He remembered how, when he first fell in love with Daisy, he had been completely broke, yet wore an officer's uniform that made Daisy believe he came from a good family and had status. That was the reason he later fought so desperately to climb upward. He always believed that as long as he had everything, he could bring Daisy back completely. Nick reminded him that the past could never be fully repeated, but Gatsby refused to accept that. From then on, Daisy often secretly went to see Gatsby under the identity of a mysterious woman. Until one day Gatsby called Nick and said that Daisy was ready, but he wanted both Nick and Jordan there too, so the five of them met at Tom's estate. Gatsby wanted Daisy to say the decisive words to Tom right there and then, but Daisy lost her nerve at the last second. In the end, they all agreed to go into the city and settle it there. Before leaving, Tom deliberately insisted on switching cars, and on the way he told Nick that he had already found out the truth about Gatsby. When they got to the apartment in New York, Tom began pressing harder and harder. He mocked Gatsby's so-called love and insisted that what existed between him and Daisy was not just a marriage on paper. Gatsby kept demanding that Daisy say the words, "I never loved Tom." But things did not go the way he wanted. Daisy admitted that she loved Gatsby now, but she also could not deny that she had once loved Tom too. That sentence completely threw Gatsby into chaos. Tom immediately pressed his advantage. He exposed the truth that Gatsby had made his fortune through bootlegging and illegal business, and laid bare the difference between Gatsby and people like them. In Tom's eyes, no matter how rich Gatsby became, he would never truly be one of them. Once the situation completely spiraled out of control, Daisy broke down and in the end chose to stand by Tom again. Tom knew he had won. He even acted generous and let Daisy ride back with Gatsby. But on the way home, as they passed through the Valley of Ashes, disaster struck. Daisy, driving that yellow car, hit and killed Myrtle, who suddenly ran out into the road. Not long after, Tom drove past the scene and learned that the woman who had been killed was actually his mistress. George Wilson, meanwhile, became convinced that the driver was the man Myrtle had been seeing. Tom took advantage of that and told him that the yellow car belonged to Gatsby. When Nick got back to the mansion, he found Gatsby still waiting outside. Only then did he learn that Daisy had been the one driving, and Gatsby had taken all the blame for her. Even now, Gatsby was still worried about what Tom might do to Daisy. Nick went inside to check, only to discover that Gatsby's fears were completely unnecessary. Tom and Daisy were sitting together in the house, calm and quiet, clearly back on the same side again. But Nick did not tell Gatsby what he had seen. That night, Gatsby told Nick about the letter he had once sent Daisy and explained why he had not come back in time. He still believed that everything he had fought so hard to gain was for one purpose only, to give Daisy a future without worry. He kept waiting for the phone, convinced that Daisy would call. But the one who came the next day was not Daisy. It was George Wilson. Under Tom's guidance,